So while I'm watching the Super Bowl, Steve, I kept thinking to myself as it was increasingly a rout, and the Eagles win 40-22. The thought that got coming through my mind was, first of all, I should probably start gambling on games because I think I knew how this one was going to end.
Well,
But
we both said we thought this was a 2 or 3 touchdown game.
we did, and we both, I think we both agreed the Eagles would win.
Yes,
But
and granted, in reality, it was more like a 4 or 5 touchdown game.
yeah, it's the score was closer than it actually appeared. It was 40-22 was the final. But I kept thinking this was, why no one's won 3 Super Bowls in a row? Because it's freaking hard to do. It's almost impossible. I mean, really think about it. I mean, just to get there 3 years, right,
Mm-hmm.
is an achievement that's rare in and of itself. But to try to win 3 in a row, man, that's hard to do. And I think, some of the things that we thought before the game came true. Philadelphia's just dominant on both sides of the ball on the defensive and offensive line, and that's where you win games. It really is. You can get as many receivers off the waiver wire or trade for DeAndre Hopkins or draft the fastest guy in the draft and all that stuff, but you have to control the line of scrimmage. And really, this was reminiscent in many ways of the score wasn't the same, and they did get in the end zone, but of the Bucs Super Bowl over Kansas City, in that they only had, the Eagles only had to rush 4. I don't think they blitzed all day.
I'm pretty sure they did not blitz once.
Yeah, and that was Todd Bowles' philosophy and game plan when they did not allow Patrick Mahomes to throw a touchdown in their game that allowed only 9 points. So, it was kind of what we expected in the sense that the more complete team won. Interestingly, I think Steve Spagnuolo spent a lot of resources in stopping Saquon Barkley, and they said, okay, Jalen Hurts is going to have to make some plays to beat us, and he did. He was the MVP, 2 touchdown passes, a tush push for a touchdown, ran the ball, ran for more yards than Saquon Barkley because they had their backs turned to him, and he just would take off. So the guy played great, and that's the other thing is that, there'd been a lot of sort of angst about Jalen Hurts. I'm not sure why exactly. I mean, he's been a really good player almost since he got to Philadelphia. He wasn't drafted until in the second round, but they had a quarterback at that time. And so look at that pick now, and here's a guy that's been to 2 Super Bowls. He played really well, by the way, in the first one that they lost, but he's a winner. The guy's a flat out winner. And when he had to make throws, he made throws. He dropped some dimes down the field, and now he's a young guy that's played in 2 Super Bowls and won one, and if you win a couple more, this Philadelphia team, Howie Roseman, who's Jason Light's really good friend, introduced him to his wife, as we say all the time. He's done an unbelievable job of both in free agency and in the draft of building this Philadelphia team, which, if you just kind of look at how they're constructed and the young players they have on defense, some of the young receivers, obviously Barkley still has a lot of juice. Jalen Hurts isn't going anywhere. That team's going to be a problem for years to come. Now let's see if they can make it back to multiple Super Bowls or not, but they are in the NFC, and so you're going to have to get through them at some point, because I don't think they're going to slip, off the radar entirely. But it was a very complete victory. Didn't make for the very entertaining Super Bowl, to say the least. I couldn't believe some of the numbers. What did the Chiefs have at halftime? 34 yards?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes, his first 20 pass attempts or dropbacks, 5 sacks, 10 pressures.
Crazy.
Only 5 times, and that was without a blitz. Like, Philadelphia got home with 4 consistently all night long. And if you can do that, you can make great quarterbacks like Mahomes look average.
Yeah, almost below average. I mean, they were all over him, and just not. You couldn't ask to start a game worse than that, especially a game as much as this one did. And that's why you think the other thing is that, and it's so overrated. Of course, the Eagles were in a Super Bowl a few years ago against the Chiefs, but a lot of people look at the Chiefs and they go, "Oh, they have so much experience, and they know when they get to this game." And really, if you look back at the Chiefs' season, they did not have a great year offensively. Mahomes' numbers weren't great. He found ways to win the game which is, next level quarterbacking and
Mhm.
clutch gene and all those things.
Yep.
But he won them late. He won a ton of, what did they win? 12 straight one-score games. I think they're 17-0 in one-score games over until their last 17. And so it was more about, sort of Andy Reid and him and the pedigree of just doing what was necessary. But they were never a team that was dominant. I also think, and my wife said this to me, and it made sense, the NFC was just better this year, right? The NFC, forgetting whatever Kansas City's record was, there was a lot of good teams in the NFC this year.
Well, I agree, but I also think Buffalo would have given a better game in this game.
Probably.
I think Baltimore would have given a better game.
But they couldn't get there.
No. Yeah, well, some would say the officials had a part of that for the Buffalo game in some spots, but
true.
I think this was a flawed Chiefs team offensively.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense was good and kept them in so many games.
Right.
I think and reading
kept them in this one for a while. I mean, really, it was 7-0 for the longest time.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles missed their first drive, and then they had the pick. They could have gone up 10 or 10-0 if they didn't do that. Yeah, for a couple drives, but then the Eagles laid it on them. But this was a flawed Chiefs team offensively. Like, their receivers are not good. Xavier Worthy's going to develop into a good one, and he's getting better he's a rookie getting better. But
Hopkins is old, and
Hopkins is old, and Hollywood Brown's old, and they're
Travis Kelce looked really old today.
Yeah, he is. I mean, this may be it for him. They don't have the weapons. Like Patrick, the defense held him in, but he doesn't have anybody to go to.
Yeah.
They are flawed offensively, weapon-wise. They don't show it on TV all the time, but as you're following, reporters that are there in person during the Super Bowl, like Patrick's dropping back. Yes, the pass rush is getting there quick, but not one.
No one's open. No one's open.
They don't have the ability to get open.
Yeah, there was no separation anywhere.
Kelsey really can't get open anymore except on busted plays.
Right.
Where then the defense is now going in different directions. It's just that they're going to have to figure out the weapons on offense. Like, their defense is good. Spagnuolo's running, a good defense. They got beat up a little bit today, but the offense couldn't give them a rest at all. Like, the first couple drives you were in the game, and then, the Eagles just dominate time of possession and plays, and then when your offense gets the ball back, it's 3 and out.
Yeah, they didn't have any time of possession. They didn't have the ball enough to do anything with it all. But it's interesting too, like how history changes, right? Going into the Super Bowl, everybody was, if Patrick Mahomes wins 3 in a row, is he the greatest quarterback of all time?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now he's 3-2 in Super Bowls, which, look, not many guys are walking around having played in 5 or won 3 rings. So not to diminish what he has done, but it does totally change your perspective, doesn't it? A little bit.
It absolutely does.
It's
4-1. Ooh, 4-1 before you're 30.
Yeah.
I mean, right. Brady was 3-0 before 30, and Aikman was 3-0 before 30.
That's right.
And,
this,
but
and he's 3-2.
If Mahomes was 4-1, though,
would have changed everything. Yeah.
Very different.
Right.
Like, it's amazing how one game can do that.
And not for nothing. And Patrick Mahomes is not ready to hang it up. He's going to be good for years to come, and I think the Chiefs will get better.
No question.
And try to fix some of their holes. But so will Buffalo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is Baltimore. And there will come a point where you're not going to get to the Super Bowl every year. Tom Brady went to a bunch of them, but then he went like 10 years between wins.
Yep.
I did play in 10, but there was a decade went by.
Yeah, they lost 2 to the Giants in that decade.
That's right. And probably shouldn't have lost either game, but they did. And that's the thing. Like, you may get back here, but when you get to that game, you have to win it. And now, the Eagles have had a couple. They have 2 now, same as the Buccaneers. I thought this was interesting too. We can get more into this later, but no sooner was this game ending, and I mean, as soon as the game was over, they waited until the clock went to 0.
Yep.
My Twitter feed blew up, and it's a big video of it begins the Buccaneers' 50th anniversary season.
Yep.
You're going to hear that a billion times. Ronnie Barber had this long film, not that long, but a film dedicated to 50 years of the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. This is a big, big anniversary for them and for this franchise. And you're going to see all kinds of things, some of which I can't even tell you right now. But there are going to be a lot of commemoration of those 50 years, which is hard to believe for me that that this franchise has been here that long. But that's the nature of football. The season is now over, right? The 2024 season ends in 2025 on February 9th, and now it's kind of like Happy New Year, right? Now you're into 2025 season, and everybody's 0-0, and it's just wild how you know even for the Philadelphia Eagles, they're back down to the bottom of the mountain. You don't stay up there. You come right back down. Everybody starts over again. So long season. Not surprising, really, that Philadelphia is the world champions. You know, they were in the game. Then they had that terrible slide after starting 10-1. The Bucs beat them in the wild card, but the Bucs beat them without their two top receivers. In the regular season this year. I know the Bucs beat the Eagles and they lost in overtime to the Chiefs, and I wrote about that the other day. But when they played the Eagles, he didn't have his top two receivers. He didn't have Smith, didn't have Brown, and so Jalen. I thought the Bucs did a pretty good job on Barkley. Trying to force Jalen to throw the ball down the field. He wasn't good enough that day, but that doesn't mean they weren't good. It would have been a different game, when you have those receivers. He's got an edge to him, man. Jalen Hurts is like all great quarterbacks. It's like go ahead and doubt him at your own risk, right?
Well, I mean, think of what he's gone through just since college. I mean,
in college, right?
Bama got benched in the national championship game.
Yeah, I mean, who comes back from that?
Then transfers and goes runner-up in the Heisman at Oklahoma.
Right.
Then in Philly, and there's been lots of talk about him and not good enough and this, and now he goes
him
and
and
wins the Super Bowl.
Sirianni don't get along, and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, and him and what was it? AJ Brown doesn't get
AJ
along.
Brown, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything he's gone through, but he's talked about he's a coach's son.
Yeah,
and his dad coaches offensive lines in that, like the toughness and work ethic, and and that's what that's what he does. Now, if you don't like his attitude or whatever else, okay, but he's a hell of a player.
All these guys look for chips, right? They all collect they all collect receipts, and the Bucs GM Jason Light is probably more famous for that than anything or anyone. But this was interesting too in watching this special. Maybe this has probably been written about, but I'm not following the Eagles closely. Is that the screensaver on his phone was the picture of himself walking through the confetti after they lost the Super Bowl.
Yep.
That's what's been on his phone. I thought, wow, it's not enough what's in your mind to remember it. You want to look at it and visualize that over and over again, for 2 years. He's going to have a different screensaver now, but
you never know. He might leave that there as another.
He might.
Just to keep
yeah. It worked once, but I thought that was really interesting. I think Aaron Andrews did a special or an interview with him, sat down, and they talked about that.
Yeah, that's incredible. And now there's been 5 players in Super Bowl history to win the Heisman Trophy, a college national championship, and the Super Bowl.
Just 5. That's remarkable.
Yeah. Tonight was the 5th one. Devonta Smith.
Okay.
The 5th one. You know who the first 4 are?
Not off the top of my head. We kind of talked a little bit about this before. The one that surprised me that I totally forgotten about was Reggie Bush.
And technically, he may not even be a Heisman Trophy winner at this point, but I think he's getting it back. But
I think so. Yeah. He did win it. They just took it away from him.
The other's Marcus Allen.
Okay.
Tony Dorsett or Dorsett.
Dorsett, yeah.
And Charles Woodson.
Charles Woodson, wow.
And then Reggie Bush and Devonta Smith.
Yeah, it's rare air, man. Not many people get to experience all of that.
Now, Jalen Hurts was a Heisman runner-up, but did not win the Heisman.
Yeah, no, that's true. Now, at Oklahoma, did he win a national championship? He did not, right?
No, he won one at Bama.
Oh, yeah, right. But that's when Tua came in the game.
Right. He started.
And he handled that with class.
Yes.
Yeah. That had to be hard. I mean, just think about getting over that in your career, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're on a national championship team. You start the game, and in the game, they pull you, put in a kid that was at that time, what, a freshman, I think?
Yeah, maybe a redshirt
Maybe
freshman,
a
but something like
redshirt
that. Yeah.
freshman, but Tua leads them back to a victory, and he handled it with such class. He's on the, on the stage with everybody and congratulating Tua, and just wanted to be a team guy. I was glad they won, and genuinely glad they won. But that's a hell of a place to start from, right? And then you transfer because they have their quarterback now, who's just won a national title, and you got to go to Oklahoma. A lot of things that Jalen Hurts had to swallow, and overcome just from a mental standpoint. So, good for him. He's a really. I mean, the times that I got to talk to him at the combine, came away so impressed. My thought was, even if you didn't have a place for him to start as your quarterback, he'd be such a great team guy and culture guy that you should just draft him. And good for the Eagles for thinking that they should do that as well. So, Super Bowl's over. World champions are the Eagles. That'll excite a lot of people. Not
Not
that
really,
many.
although
Not many. Not
maybe
that
more
many.
that it wasn't the Chiefs this year.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, it's
Maybe
the first
not
time people actually wanted to root for Philly that aren't Philly fans.
exactly. Yeah, arguably because the Chiefs had won so much, I think, and depending on what you think of Kelsey and Taylor Swift and all that, and then Philadelphia just being that fan base, right, that nobody
Yep.
really likes
Yep.
outside of Philly. These were arguably from the outside, not those two cities, but from the outside, one of the more unappealing Super Bowls because so many people didn't like either team.
Right. Well, and that's the recency bias though, because 10 years ago no one cared about the Chiefs.
Oh yeah, no,
Like,
they were bad for 50 years
yeah,
before
like
that.
no one cared.
Yeah.
I mean, the Cowboys are still probably number one.
True, that's true.
But Philly and when New York is good, they're usually up there too. But
Yeah,
their teams have stunk for so many years now.
yeah,
And Aaron Rodgers looks like he's not going to be back in New York.
yeah. That was breaking news. I think Jay Glazer had that first, and everybody followed suit. They brought him in, I guess, last week, and sat him down and kind of made him aware that they just want a clean slate. And so yeah, now we'll see. If he wants to play, he's got to make that decision, and then if he does, where does he go? Like
Well,
where?
and a lot of people are speculating because he flew in to meet with the team.
Right.
That means he wants to come back and play.
And that's probably fair.
If he was going to retire, there's no need to go back and fly to New York and meet, right?
Yeah. Him and
maybe he hasn't
Devontae
made up his
Adams.
mind. He may not have made up his mind yet either, but
Yeah. I think maybe him and Adams could be out of there. I'll tell you.
I saw the reports afterwards that Devontae Adams most likely out too.
Yeah.
So.
You know what wouldn't make horrible sense? You probably disagree with me. I don't know. What about the Las Vegas Raiders? For both those guys.
I wouldn't. I mean, why wouldn't that be a good fit? I mean,
they don't have a quarterback, so they're going to have to get somebody. I would prefer maybe 1 year with Aaron Rodgers over.
I think a Pete Carroll could coach Aaron Rodgers. I think that could work.
Right.
I mean, look, Rodgers ain't your long-term fix, of course. I mean, you may draft a quarterback still and let him sit behind Rodgers for.
But if you're looking at him or say Russell Wilson, who's the other option?
Yeah, I would. I mean, Aaron Rodgers' stats weren't bad this year.
When he played, he played well especially down the stretch. Didn't play well in the beginning of the year. Nobody did. I mean, they fired the coach. They had all these changes and offensive coordinator and all of that. But towards the end of the year, yeah, numerically, like statistics weren't bad. Touchdown, interception, all that stuff. So I mean, I think if he's got football in him, you want to get more out of him. Maybe that's a landing spot. You're going to have a bridge guy, no matter who the Raiders end up with from a.
Yeah. But I think Pete Carroll coaching him, I think he can handle some of that noise that comes with Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Pete's a big enough personality that he's going to take a lot of that on himself. He did for Russ. Towards the end, it wasn't good. There was a lot of noise around Russ Wilson too, and he managed to take that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see who my man John Spytek winds up with out there in Las Vegas. So, Super Bowl is over. We have a world champion. It is the Philadelphia Eagles, and 2025 is here upon us. And we had a chance not too long ago to talk to their new offensive coordinator, Josh Grizzard. Wrote a story in the Tampa Bay Times on TampaBay.com. I want to tell you guys about regarding some of the things that Grizzard also told us during his media availability, which was for about an hour. He met with us as writers for about 30 minutes after the press conference. So we'll get to that in just a second. But first, hey, are you looking for a Philadelphia Eagles watch? I know you guys are down here, man. You're down here. Look, so much of Philadelphia lives in Clearwater, and they come down to watch spring training with the Phillies, right? And you have all these, winter residents. Well, go to see our friends at Breitling Boutique. That's right, Breitling Boutique. It's an International Plaza Mall. You need to go there and go there now because they have the greatest collection of Swiss watches you'll ever find. The Chronomats, which they're known for, the Navatimers. And right now, speaking of the NFL, they're celebrating the NFL's 104th year anniversary with the special watches for all 32 teams, including the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. And these are limited editions. So who knows how many they got left. If you're a Buccaneers fan, there were a few not long ago, but make sure you go to Breitling Boutique, go upstairs. It's around the center of the mall on the second floor. You're going to love the store. You're going to love the customer service. They're used to dealing with a lot of celebrities, championship boxers. You'll see some Buccaneers in there once in a while, and why not? Because it's a special place, and they got a great collection of watches for you. Also, not just for men, but maybe for your wife or for your girlfriend. Beautiful sports watches in all sorts of colors. These are durable. They're gorgeous, and she's going to love them. So check it out, Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall, and make sure you tell them that you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. So remember last week we had a chance to talk to Josh Grizzard, their new offensive coordinator, and we got him on the podium for quite a while. I mean, he's first of all, he's a likable guy. He was, very gracious with his time, and then as writers, we got to sit down and talk to him a little bit afterwards. And one of the things I thought was interesting because he kind of brought it up when he was discussing his job, as their passing game coordinator, their third down guy, if you will, just how impressed he was with Chris Godwin. Um, which, so we got on the topic of Chris, and he's coming off that devastating knee injury, or I'm sorry, ankle injury. He had the knee injury, 3 years ago. This time, dislocated ankle. At the time that he got hurt, he was leading the NFL through 7 games in receiving, and he was on pace for a fourth straight 1,000-yard season. We talk about Mike Evans and what he's done, second to none, right? Him and Jerry Rice with 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Well, Chris Godwin was headed for his fourth in a row, and but for the second time in 3 years, he got hurt. Now, once again, he's an unrestricted free agent. He's going to turn 29 later this month, and there's obviously, you have to sign him to a new deal. But just in listening to Grizzard talk about him, he just flat out said, "Look, I love Chris, and he's as good a human being as a football player that you can be around." And he was a big asset last year. It's like being a coach on the field. And he talked about how, he didn't know him until he watched how hard he worked. And he said, without having been there to really see him before last year, it was amazing to him. And he said, you could kind of see it start to wear off on the younger guys. You had young guys like Bucky Irving and them coming in, working hard and late and all that. But with Chris, he said he understands what you're trying to do and the concepts, the splits, the motions when he's blocking, running a route. And he's able to translate that from all those different offenses he's been in and still play at a high level because of just the way he prepares. Like Mike Evans, who kind of taught him and mentored him. He spends a lot of time on his own preparing for defenses. The question is going to be like, what kind of Chris Godwin are you going to get, right? It was a devastating injury, maybe not as severe as tearing 3 knee ligaments. And in that one, he was injured in December, made it back for the September opener at Dallas and played in the game. I think he'll recover from this one a little quicker. They were even talking about when he got injured, well, maybe if we made it to the Super Bowl, there's a chance. So that's how confident they were that he would make a full recovery. So certainly by next training camp, I think it's about a 9-month injury. He's got a chance to participate in that. But how many $20 million quarter receivers can you have? And Mike Evans, is going to be like what 32 years old by next August, and so can you afford to have both these guys? And how much money is it going to cost you? Well, it's already going to cost the Bucks, even if he doesn't play, because I think he's going to count like more than $18 million on the salary cap in dead money, 18.852. So you're almost better off signing him if you can, right? Because you can then, lower that cap number with voidable years or whatnot. The question is, can they get the right deal for him? Is it going to be a 2-year deal? Is it going to do a 1-year deal? I mean, he got hurt before and he was a lot younger. I mean, this guy, they hadn't seen him at all, and he was coming off 3 knee ligaments, and they franchised him. I mean, they locked him up, and then they signed him to a 3-year, $60 million deal. So they had confidence in him then that he would return at top level, and he was leading the NFL in receiving before he got hurt. So they'll have to have confidence that he can do that again. The other thing that he talked about was Mayfield and just how good he was, especially on third down. In training camp and in the spring, you don't see Baker running around much because he's trying to make plays with his arm, trying to see what he can get away with, throwing off platform and doing different things. But the way he played on third down and really making use of his feet was impressive, to say the very least. And so that can continue to be maybe even more of a weapon as they get into the regular season and the postseason. I think he had a career high in rushing yards this year, um, from 300 and I don't know 60, 70 yards for the season, a couple 3 touchdowns. The other thing he'd like to see him do though is Grizzard said, he wants to throw the ball down the field more. Last year, Steve, it didn't, there were some deep shots, but it didn't feel like there were a lot. They had a lot of drives that were 12, 14, sometimes 15 plays. And that's tough to do in this league.
It's very tough. I mean, the defenses have gotten so good, that there's just so many chances for mistakes.
Exactly.
False starts, holding calls,
Exactly.
those kind of things that happen, it's become a league of a lot bigger plays.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And that's where, the best defenses don't allow the big plays.
Right.
Typically with a pass rush, which is how they avoid that.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles are one of those teams that don't allow a lot of big plays, but
right.
Yeah, trying to move methodically down the 3 yards in a cloud of dust, et cetera, isn't the way football's played anymore. And it's so hard to do that consistently.
Yeah. Bruce Arians, who, no biscuit, no risk it guy, he would tell you that his ideal drive was 5 plays. It's like, wow, 5? But he was like, yeah, I don't want more than 5 or 6. And many times he would be successful in doing that. But for the same reason you said, the more you handle the ball, the more likely there's going to be a mistake in there somewhere. It's good to keep the other team's offense off the field, but you have to get in the end zone, and you need chunk plays to do that. And they didn't have as many, I don't think, last year as Grizzard would have liked. So that's something. And then because of his roots and the fact that he was with Mike McDonald in Miami, we saw some of this last year, but I think you will see even more motion in the offense, pre-snap and otherwise, just to keep the defense, from settling in. And it's really something that they kind of began a year ago. I think they'll do more of it. McVay does a lot of it. I mean, basically, when he interviewed with Liam Cohen a year ago, that's what Liam wanted to know about, like all the motions and things that he had learned in Miami under McDonald, and incorporate some of those. And you saw that last year. So I think you'll see a lot more of that. It's going to be, I think, who knows what it's going to be like when he starts calling plays and you get that job as an offensive coordinator for the first time. But Grizzard he has some good ideas. And that's how you stick around, through 3 different coaches with the Dolphins. So I like his personality. I don't know if the play calling will be a big thing for him or not. The biggest advantage is they're not starting over with terminology, with schemes. the installs, all that stuff. You have to do some for the rookies, obviously, but for the most part, they're going to take where they left off last year and then build on that. So that should help them out a lot. Meanwhile, boy, what a weekend for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Really a week for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They win again. They won both games over the weekend. They were both afternoon games. I didn't get to see either one, Steve, but this is now 4 in a row for them.
4 in a row in points in their last 6 games, 5-0-1 in that stretch. The last 4 coming all against division foes.
Mm-hmm.
So they are now firmly entrenched in 3rd place in the division.
Wow.
Just 2 points behind Toronto for 2nd place, and just 5 points behind Florida for 1st. And the Lightning have 2 games in hand. So
it's crazy how fast things turn around in the National Hockey League, because I can remember before they went on this run, they were actually mathematically, if the season ended today, they would have missed the playoffs before this current run.
That is correct. But when you get streaks like that, I mean, you can move up quickly. So many teams in the Eastern Conference. Look, it's a tight Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
So many teams are, just battling a win one, lose one, win one. Like it's a very tight race. A lot of teams right there, just barely above Hockey 500. But the Lightning now at 600 points percentage, which is good. 66 points through 55 games. So they said going into this week, and it was a tough week. They came off that horrendous January of 16 games in 29 days. They went 7-8-1 in that stretch. Not great. They played pretty well, but they just weren't scoring much. Well, now they're actually scoring. It was what they scored this week. I want to say it was 20 goals in the 4 games, something like that.
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah.
But to be honest, they didn't play as well as they played in a lot of January. But their opportunities to score were going in.
It kind of balances out, doesn't it?
It does. But Andre Vasilevsky was fantastic this week.
Mm-hmm.
He played both games of the back-to-back over the weekend. He was fantastic. Kind of kept him in him at times, particularly like in Detroit that second period. Detroit dominated that period. But Detroit was only able to score 1 goal, and the Lightning still had a lead going to the 3rd and then won that game. So the Lightning now get a 2-week break. The Four Nations face-off starts on Wednesday night. 5 Lightning players will be a part of that, but everybody else gets a 2-week break.
Mm-hmm.
You never get upset about having a break, but you kind of wonder if it was at the right time for the Lightning now.
Well, yeah, they're hot. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you don't want to lose that momentum, but there's probably a lot of guys that need rest too.
Well, Nikita Kucherov was a late scratch on Sunday.
So he's one for sure.
Cooper said he tweaked something Saturday, couldn't go. J.J. Moser will be back after the Four Nations break, it looks like, which is a huge – I mean, he's been out since mid-December.
Yeah.
He's one of your top 4 defensemen. So your back end will get a lot deeper because he was playing really well. We know that Anthony Cirelli missed a game this week, so we know guys are battling stuff. Now, granted, he's going to be part of the Four Nations face-off, but the rest is never a bad thing. But
no,
after you win 4 in a row, you're like, well, maybe could we just wait another week till we do this? But
yeah, let's play until we lose. I mean, that's what you want to do. But yeah, no, it's not a bad thing. I mean, they obviously need it, and there won't be that many games when they return.
27 games left.
Yeah, I mean that seems like that's nothing. That's like a month or so.
That's a third of the season. I mean, you're a third of the way through the season right now.
Right. Yeah.
Or 2/3 of the way through. You have a third left.
So hopefully they can continue to push forward. But yeah, they certainly turn around their fortunes in a quick way, and that's good to see. And it's good to see Vasilevsky playing well.
And you're seeing some young kids too, like Gage Gonsalves, since he's been called back up, been a lot more noticeable. He's playing with some top 6 minutes. But he's been really impactful. And then Dylan Duke made his NHL debut on Saturday.
Scored a huge goal.
Scored a goal. And he went to the University of Michigan.
Right.
And got to play that game in Detroit.
Yeah, that's wild.
So that was his debut. But he, the trade deadline's now, we're under a month away. March 7th is the trade deadline.
Yeah.
So Julian Breezewell is, giving some kids
working
a
the
shot.
phones.
Seeing what they've got too.
I heard a rumor. I don't know if it's true. I don't even know where I read it, so it's probably not true. Could Yanni Gourde be on his way back here?
So Yanni Gourde is a pending free agent. He'll be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season.
Right. Could you rent him?
Seattle's not. They're at 52 points, 57 games. I mean, they're 9 or 11 points out a playoff spot right now.
Right.
That's pretty far back.
Yeah.
So they're probably looking to sell if they're going to make moves at the trade deadline. At this
Does that make sense? I mean,
so Yanni Gord right now is out. He's had a sports hernia surgery.
oh, okay.
He should be back around the trade deadline time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to say I've watched a lot of Seattle Kraken hockey this year, but if Yanni Gord is similar to the Yanni Gord, can still
That
play
you
at
left.
that level, that fly around the ice, be a pest,
Right.
cause some havoc. Like if he can do that, yeah, it would be a great move for the Lightning. And I'm not going to say I know that he's at that level right now.
Yeah.
We know he loves Tampa Bay.
Right.
Depending on, if the Lightning are interested, if Seattle wants to do Yanni a solid, I'm guessing Tampa Bay would be one of his preferred destinations to go to.
You would imagine, yeah.
So if they do want to move on from Yanni or let him go try to win a title this year, since he's going to be restricted free agent, they may want him back next year. That I don't know either.
Mm-hmm.
But could Yanni Gord come back? Sure. I mean, end of a contract, so it's a rental. Although the Lightning could possibly re-sign him too. We know he loves Tampa Bay.
Right.
So stranger things have happened. So
you got him and Mikey Eisenmont's kind of taking that pest role over, if you will, to some degree. But
a little bit.
But to have him and Yanni on this club,
but you remember, I mean, Eisenmont's kind of taken that over. But Eisenmont doesn't play penalty kill like Yanni does.
True.
Did. Things like that. They're different, but yeah, he does kind of take on that role a little bit.
Yeah. No, that would be exciting. But I think, look, Breezeball is going to do something to fortify this team before the trade deadline because they have a shot.
So the Lightning camp is always very tight-lipped. Like you never hear anything out of the Lightning what they're potentially doing. But as you start talking trades, that involves teams and agents.
Yeah.
And so you start to hear reports, and guys like Elliot Friedman is one of the big national reporters.
Yeah.
He's actually in Canada, but one of the big NHL insiders has said the Lightning are all over lots of players.
Yeah, they got to be buyers. They have to be buyers.
Yeah, they are looking hard. Now, what deals are out there, who's out there, and what you can...
what you have to pay for them.
What they're willing to give up for whatever asset it is. I mean, we'll see. But the Lightning are very active in the trade market right now, according to guys like Elliot Friedman.
And am I right? Are we just about 24 hours away from Rays baseball opening of spring training?
Pitchers and catchers report tomorrow.
Wow. Oh, man. It's exciting. Like nobody loves baseball, much more than I do anyway. But, going to be a unique year. Of course, I'll be back down in Port Charlotte. I know Mark Tompkin has got his Airbnb ready to move into down there. So hopefully we'll get him here in the not too distant future to talk a little Rays baseball. But it's going to be a unique year to say the least. And man, with all the stadium stuff going on, I don't know how much of that we'll get into when we do get them. But
some of that will be wrapped up right around opening day or by
around March 30th, I think they said.
Yeah, I think opening day is 28th or 29th. They got moved back a day, so I don't remember which day it is. But
right. But you know how there's a million stories between now and then, right?
Well, and things could be determined beforehand or things could change before. Who knows?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Who knows? But we know we're going to have baseball, and that's always a good thing in my life when we have something to talk about with the Rays. And they got some interesting players. Look, Junior Camanero's, had a great winter ball season, and they make the trade, for a shortstop who's not ready to play, but and then the pitching, I think you got a lot of guys, a lot of good arms coming back and adding to what's already a good collection of pitchers to begin with. So
it'd be good to see how Shane McClanahan fares.
Yeah, that's going to be huge, right? The former ace, left-handed pitcher. It's going to be great to get him back. So, yeah, the Rays should be an interesting story, as they always are each and every year, and we'll have some Rays baseball to talk about. Of course, the Buccaneers will be headed to Indianapolis. I think the next big thing for them, their coaching staff is kind of set. So it'll be the combine towards the end of the month, beginning of March, and then free agency not too long after that. So anyway, check it all out in the Tampa Bay Times on tampabay.com. In the meantime, get your mailbag questions in. You can do that by sending them to us on Twitter or X at SportsDayTB. You can reach me on Twitter at NFL Stroud, or my email address is rstroud@tampabay.com. For Steve Versnick, I'm Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great day, everybody.